Well, Mike Tyson, of course, went into that fight undefeated with the most fearsome knockout reputation in the sport, only to be upset by Douglas. And this weekend, a British fighter gets his chance to do the same to this generation's knockout specialist, Mike.
Yes, they do. And fight fans, writers, commentators talk at the moment of echoes of Mike Tyson when they mention this remarkable middleweight from Kazakhstan called Gennady Golovkin. And the echoes refer to his record, which is 28 inside the distance wins out of 31. He's unbeaten. He's on a streak of 18 inside the distance wins in a row. And on Saturday in Monaco, he's up against the British middleweight Martin Murray, who's had 2 previous attempts at winning a world title. And for Murray, there are echoes of James Buster Douglas, because outside of his own camp, very few people are giving him any chance at all.
This guy Golovkin, Steve, just sum him up for us. Why is he so good?
Well, he's a lot of the old Soviet bloc fighters, and he's still part of that old system, even though the wall's been down, or has been down an awful long time. They do so many basic things so well. They do some old school things. They don't waste punches. They load up on their punches. They don't. There's nothing fancy about what they do. Everything they throw is to hurt. It's the old point scoring system. Every punch hurts, whether it's a left hand, the right hand, whether it's to the body, whether it's to the head, whether it's a short shot, whether it's a long shot. And the way he's taken fighters out with just about every single type of punch. And he's been patient. He's been extended a few rounds a few times. He likes to finish his fights early. Most of something like 14 or 16 or 17 have ended inside 3 rounds. But 3 people in the last few years have extended him to 7 and 8 rounds. Now, of those three guys, a Ghanaian called Adama, a guy called Curtis Stevens from America, and a guy called Gabriel Rosado, a Mexican-American, none of those 3 were as good as Martin Murray. Okay, so the thinking, Martin Murray's thinking is, and I spoke to Martin Murray yesterday, he's in Monte Carlo, if those guys could get him to 7 rounds, I'll get him to 7 rounds, and I'll try and find something in him, and this is the key line, he said, I'll try and see if I can get him to doubt himself. And then he laughed, he went, you know what though, I've watched most of his fights, he doesn't do anything wrong, he doesn't have any doubt, he just doesn't, he's got iron blood.
I just wonder though, Steve, those 3 men that you mentioned, going back to what Buster Douglas said to me, did they have 1 foot in the ring, 1 foot outside the ring? Were they on
1.5 outside?
Were they on a damage limitation exercise? The problem for Murray, of course, is if he genuinely tries to win and therefore exposes himself, leaves the openings, that's when Golovkin really capitalises.
Mike, he will try and win. He was scathing and dismissive of Matt Macklin's attempt. He was scathing and dismissive of almost every single fighter, 13 world title fights that he's had in 6 different countries, by the way, which is near enough a record. He was scathing of previous opponents. 1 or 2 of them who got done quick, who went down in a blaze of glory, he had a bit of respect for. He's been away for 6 weeks at altitude in South Africa. He's obviously from St Helens originally on Merseyside. He's got a game plan, and he'll go for it, Mike. He might get done in 90 seconds, but he'll have a good 90 seconds. He's not going to be the Adama, Stevens and Rosado who float through, never winning, even coming close to winning a round, and bailing out when they get hit and clumped often enough.
And he'll be able to live with himself afterwards.
And he couldn't go. This guy's a throwback fighter. Sorry, Ellie, he's a real throwback fighter, this guy Martin Murray. And we've ignored him on here in the last 3 or 4 years. He will not be able to live with himself if he doesn't give it his all. He once fought in front of 40,000 people in Argentina against the best middleweight in the world, where his fans, including Riquet and his manager, were placed inside a cage, were surrounded by police dogs for their own protection. So he's not afraid.
And he fought to a draw in his other world title fight in Germany. So he's got plenty.
We'll hear from him in just a second. We're talking about the man they call GGG, or is it Triple G? Gennady Gennadyevich Golovkin. If you want to know more about him, Ben Durs has written a fascinating profile for the BBC Sport website, which is available right now. Just go to bbc.co.uk/sport. Let's hear a bit from Martin Murray, because regardless of what the bookies say, he is focusing on the job at hand.
I think a lot of his opponents have gone in half beat, believing the hype. Rightly so, he's got some hype around him, but I think that a lot more has been created around him. I'm not approaching this fight where I'm believing the hype. I'm just approaching this fight thinking I'm fighting a very good fighter who's got power.
And in a sense, ignoring a lot of what you might hear outside between now and then.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I don't want to hear anything negative. He's knocked his last 18 out. People tell him, I know that. Do you know what I mean? He hits extremely hard. I know that. You don't have to tell me stuff I already know. I know the challenge what I've got in front of me. Do you know what I mean? So it's just about thinking positive for me. You know what I mean? And just believing I can win. You know, people coming in saying, "Oh, he's done this, he's done that." So what? Do you know what I mean? It's a fight. It's the biggest fight out there for me, and it's the toughest fight out there for me. But it's a fight I want, and a fight I believe I can win.
When St Helens meets Kazakhstan, it's an interesting meeting, isn't it, between these two? But if Golovkin does win this fight, without wishing to disrespect Martin Murray, if he does win this fight, as many expect him to, Mike, what's next on his road to international superstardom?
Well, he has a wide range of options simply because of his record and because of his growing appeal, in particular in the United States. But he's been talking, and others have too, about potentially moving up in weight to fight Carl Froch. Golovkin is a middleweight, so he'd have to put on roughly half a stone, just over, to get up to meet Carl Froch at super middleweight, or drop down a similar amount of weight to light middleweight to face the likes of Floyd Mayweather. And that, for him, is absolutely what he wants to do.
Yes, this is great fight. Just I respect Carl, I respect Floyd. He's number one. Floyd number one in the world, Carl number one in super middleweight division. Of course.
But could the fight against Carl Froch possibly happen sometime in 2015?
Absolutely, I hope so. Because I respect him. He's a great fighter. I don't know, in the future, maybe next year. I want fight.
He might want them, Steve, but what are the chances? Can you see Carl Froch or Floyd Mayweather going anywhere near him?
Absolutely not. And they'll use the excuse he's not yet a big enough name. Well, I'd argue he is a big enough name. And if he does a job on Martin Murray, and it's still a bit of if involved. I mean, I'm not saying I think Martin Murray's going to win, but I think it is a hard fight. I think Martin Murray brings some things to the table, and then in theory, I think it'll be a good win, and I think people will look at it, and then perhaps you move closer to one of those super fighters. There's about 5 or 6 fighters in the world at the moment who are doing a bit too much cherry picking for my liking, and they may I won't miss the boat because they're going to make 6 million, 20 million, 40 million in the next fight. So how have they, quote, missed the boat? But there's one or two that are just cherry picking a bit too much. Gennady Golovkin isn't, and I tell you what, I was at a meeting of the London ex-boxers on last week in London, about 400 people there, and these old guys, including guys of 87, Ronnie Cooper, who fought with the 1948 Olympics, and he asked me, he said, this Russian, what's he, a Russian? I said, Golovkin. He went, I hear he's a bit tasty, Steve. So there you go. True story.
Sums it up.